We're joined in the studio with Graham Cottington from the British Transport Police. We catch up with Graham normally a couple of times a year. So, Graham, it's good to see you back here at BRFM.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Good to be back. Yeah, and hope we've got some interesting things for the listeners tonight. So,
yeah. I was wondering, perhaps, if you could just tell us a little bit about your role and what you cover.
Yeah, well, obviously the British Transport Police. A lot of people don't really know what we do. They see maybe some of us at the railway stations, but the British Transport Police is a national railway force, a national railway service a national police service that cover the whole of the railway industry. That's throughout the United Kingdom, England, Scotland, and Wales. We also cover the Eurostar. We police from Ashford and St Pancras through the tunnel, and we just look after the general travelling public, making sure that the trains run okay. Nothing really to do with the railway itself, but we just police the local community and local public transport, using those systems. My particular role within the Transport Police is that I'm the crime reduction and architectural officer, which means that I give crime reduction and crime prevention advice to the travelling public. I also work on the architectural side, so if there's a refurbishment or maybe a new build going in alongside the railway, we will give building architectural advice to the company and to the railway industry through our expertise of studying the plans and looking at parts of the build that may infringe on the railway or may have an effect on the local community. I'm also the schools officer. I go into local schools and talk to children as young as 5 and 6, right the way up to, into the late teens, about travelling safety, antisocial behaviour, trespassing, all the sort of things that young people think's a bit of a buzz. Go on the railway, go on the train, maybe go on the track, and I just give them the nuts and bolts of what they're doing. So I give them the consequences of crime, I give them the facts, I give them the figures, and hopefully by a few films, with the reinforcement of films, they won't do anything too severe that's going to cost them, that could cost them their life. And we talk about that at the end. I'd like to give a website out at the end, and we talk about schools towards the end. But that's basically what I do. I'm a serving police officer, so therefore I am an operational police officer, and I get involved in all the operational duties. And over recent months, we've been involved with, as you're probably aware, the riots in central London and other cities. We've been involved in football. The start of the new football season is now quite heavy. We've got the new Westfield shopping centres opened at Stratford, which comes out again under our sort of jurisdiction, if you like. And Ebbsfleet's always busy because it's the Eurostar, and Ashford's very, very busy because it's the Eurostar stops. So we are kept very, very, very busy.
Graham, I know you wanted to cover identity theft, so what is that?
OK, well, identity theft is a big problem at the moment, and we're having a not so much a problem, but a purge on the system at the moment. And there's two sides to this problem with identity theft. Traditionally, the first one is, as we know, a thief steals an individual's identity, and they can actually steal your identity by stealing things like checkbooks, credit cards, personal bills, any kind of record that's got your details on it. It's a source check, so they can go on to things like the intranet, births and deaths registers, and they can use those kind of details to open bank accounts, gain credit status, and all of those kind of things. They can get loans in your name. They can get state benefits, and quite simply, it's they take over an existing person's account, and the way they do that is they can obtain genuine documents, such as passports and driving licences, and they can get all that information just from your name and address. So I want to give some tips on what to do with things that have got your name and address on it, whether it be junk mail, whether it be personal mail, and how to look after your cards, those kind of things. And that's the sort of information we can give out. And also the second part of the problem is that they use those identities to commit fraud, and I'll give you some stunning facts and figures in a moment, but they use those identities to commit fraud, and they do it in your name. So it's some good, strong advice there for our listeners.
How do these crimes occur, Graham?
Well, as we've already said, but they steal your identity by utilising your details. Okay, and then what they do with those details is that they set themselves up with false bank accounts and those kind of things. the Home Office have got an identity fraud steering committee, and what the Home Office do is they look at the fraud in and around the country, on every piece of fraud, whether it be really low-level stuff that school kids or people could do, but just by simple things like perhaps just altering a railway ticket. It's fraud, it's deception.
Yeah.
You're deceiving the railway company. So that from low stuff right the way up to the sort of the multi-million pound stuff, where you're talking about a big excavation, a large works where they're using materials and there's a lot of money moving around, and that's the sort of thing they look at. And the Home Office Steering Committee run an exercise, and in 2008 they determined that the fraud costs the UK economy, that's me and you, taxpayers, it costs the UK about £1.8 billion a year. This is an annual turnover of £1.8 billion, and that is coming out of our pocket. We're paying that. Now then, where that problem lies is that these people, they get your identity. It's very, very easy to track somebody's home address, home telephone number, because not a lot of people block off their home details. But they call the victims, they pretend to be their bank, they can pretend to be any other kind of financial institution. They ask the customers to confirm their details, and people can be so taken in by the other end of the phone, that they will give their details, their bank details, they give passwords away, they'll give security numbers to their accounts, and people are very vulnerable, very, very vulnerable. They also use phishing techniques, phishing techniques. These have been around ever since a computer was designed, and whatever we put on a computer to stop people doing this, they will get a way around it. So it doesn't matter whatever tools you put on your computer, on your programs, they will use passwords, they will use some kind of technique to get through. They'll use websites which are very, very cleverly designed that look like the real thing, but in actual fact they're not. And people will go on them using those, particularly a lot of financial institutions. They'll come up with something like, if it's only got to be, Lloyds Bank, Westminster Bank, HSBC, all those kind of different banks, they'll put something on the website that makes it look like them, and they'll ask you for information. Now, I will say at this point that no bank, no loan industry will ever ask you for your bank details or your identity. Never ever will they ask you to do it. So if someone asks you for that and they tell you they're from a bank, that's not right, and you're quite liberty to phone your bank and ask them why they're asking you these questions, because generally they don't. There's also obviously malicious software, as I said, and malware, spyware on your computer system. If you're buying things off the internet, you've got to be very, very careful when you log onto your computer that before you make any payment at all, go through a designated PayPal or PayPal or some kind of pay organisation. Don't just assume that just because that person at the other end has got a bank account that you can pay them direct, because they'll clock all your numbers, they'll come at your amount, and before you know it they can actually enter your bank account and drain your bank account. They gather personal details as well through information posted on the web, and this is a big problem for us at the moment. Social websites, chat rooms, where people are going onto social websites and they're putting all kinds of things, whether it be Bebo, whether it be Facebook, all these kind of information. We put so much information on that internet. That's not just you and one or two other people looking at it. That is hundreds and thousands. It could run into millions of people looking at that web page. So if you put stuff on there, you're open. The other thing is about stealing mail as well. And mail is a big problem because people get mail, junk mail. They leave it in the bin, it's thrown in community areas, particularly if you live in a residential area which has got one pickup point, say you've got a block of flats. Those kind of things, residential areas can be quite a problem, because if you don't like it, you throw it in the rubbish. It only takes someone to open that rubbish bag, pull out a few old pieces of letters with your name and address on it, and they've got all your details. And with those, they can set themselves up accounts and what have you. And then lastly, they can steal your personal data through stealing your belongings. I mean, we all know that that's been going on for years. Pickpocketing, wallets, purses, burglaries into cars, breaking into cars. And if you remember last time when we spoke about people leaving their cars in railway station car parks for long periods of time, if they see a coat on the back seat, if they see a glove box which might look as if it's got something in it, they'll put the window in and have a look, just purely to see if there's anything in there. They're just little techniques that these people will use. But hopefully, those kind of pointers, just be very, very cautious who you're giving your details to. Banks will never ask you, okay? No one should ever ask you for your PIN codes, for your identity, your passwords, anything like that. If you're worried, phone the bank and check them out.
So who are most vulnerable for these kinds of crimes, Graham?
Okay, well, in fact, we all are, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But generally, it's the elderly. We get a lot of people come up to elderly people's doors. They say they're from somewhere, they say they're from the water board and they're going to come and check their stopcocks, or they're from the electricity board and they just want to check the meter. If that person is not displaying a badge, or they haven't phoned before to say they're in the area, I'd be very, very cautious. Leave them standing on the doorstep. If they've got an identity card, generally a lot of these companies will have a telephone number on that card, which you can ask if you can ring them before you let them into your home. Do not part with any money to these people. They will not take money off you. There are lots and lots of scams out there. You've just got to be very, very careful. You've got to be on the back foot all the time. Don't allow anybody into your house to look at anything in your house unless they've made a prior permission beforehand. Check their passes 100%. Take the card out, read the number on the back, telephone the company, say, have you got someone in this area doing checks? If they haven't, you'll find that when you go back to the door, that person's generally run off. So just be very, very careful. The elderly are very, very vulnerable, particularly this time of night. Nights are drawing in. They don't know. They open the door to all kinds of people. And if they're working in pairs, while someone's talking to the person in the house, the other person could be going through cupboards and drawers and out the back door with a handbag or a purse or car keys, and that's the sort of thing they're doing. So just be very, very careful of them. So the elderly are the most important, but we all are. We're all subject to it, particularly when we're walking through a busy railway station, wallet in the back pocket or your handbag's open on the escalator. It takes these people 2 or 3 seconds, hand in the bag, out with the purse. They've got all your cards, they've got your information. Don't ever leave anything inside your purse with your PIN number, your bank cards with your PIN number. These people will have it, and they'll have your account open and draw money out within minutes. And by the time you've got to the bank and phone them, it could be too late. They've already drawn out £500, £600, £1,000, whatever from your bank account. So everyone is vulnerable. You just got to be thinking always. You've got to be on your toes, and you've got to be very, very mindful of who's around you. When using cash point machines and those kind of things. So fraud is a big, big problem in this country at the moment.
We are talking to PC Graham Cottington this evening, a regular visitor to us here at the Monday Night Community Show. We normally catch up with Graham a couple of times a year, and he's from the British Transport Police.